Hey everyone. Yeah, you can see down there, different location, or as you can see here, different location. My room, that is. And of course, as you can see here or above, depending on how you watch it, this is a video review of Sonic the Hedgehog 272, which ironically I'm going to be getting in the mail possibly this week again from Midtown Comics. So I will have two of the same issue. But this today came directly from Archie Comics. This wasn't, as you can see, this wasn't delivered the way it usually is delivered, which will probably be next month. This was delivered in Archie Comics white packaging. In the white packaging, they sent some of the comics and items in, and I was surprised by that. But then again, I did choose the 3 to 6 day priority mailing option when I renewed my subscription. So I don't know if that means basically that this is how I'm going to be getting a lot of my issues like this now, because it's 3 to 6 days. Although I can assume that maybe that's by using priority mail, it also puts me up there as one of those subscribers that, hey, we got to get the issue out to them as soon as possible. Now, as you could probably also see down here if it fits, and as you could probably also see in the title, either below or above, it also states this is my 200th issue subscribed. Officially, this is the 200th issue in my subscription. Like I said, officially I started with 72, I believe, and I've come all the way full circle with I've come all the way full circle with 272, so it's pretty amazing to know that I've gone that far. And like it was stated, it started all in September of 1998. I think basically on the first Monday of September 1998. So that is hard to believe. So anyway, what is this story about? Well, basically the story is a nice little continuation of the whole Shattered Worlds arc, if you will. And it gives you a clue right off the bat when you open it up, and you kind of get that recap on the inside. It gives you an idea of what actually came, in order. So basically, when we were reading Champions, the Champions arc in the main comic came before the story arc that was going on at the same time in Sonic Universe, which was Spark of Life. We also know that after Spark of Life, we had the Sonic Super Special Magazine story. The Super Sonic Magazine story involving Sonic, Silver, and the Genesis portals. So, those pretty much are the order of how things happened. Now we get to this. And in this issue, basically, we have them in Outpost, if you will. We start with Sonic and Antoine in Outpost, and along with Chip, and they're fighting off some badniks and everything. And basically, afterwards, after they're done disposing of the badniks, if I can look here. And basically, Antoine comes to the conclusion that, if Eggman is sending his badniks here, that maybe this this Gregorus guy might have something important to learn about. And Sonic's like, hey, it wouldn't hurt to check. Besides, we're doing okay as far as Chaos Emeralds are concerned. Now, meanwhile, on the on Sky Patrol, Knuckles is recapping Bunny, Amy, Rotor, and Cream on the situation with him. He's basically explaining to them why he had to shatter the Master Emerald and everything. And that when he got involved in the fighting tournament, he thought he was down there to find one of the shards, and not a Chaos Emerald. And of course, Amy has to remind Knuckles that when he brings up the tournament, Amy has to remind him, yeah, and you knocked me out of the ring. And Cream has to kind of tell her, no. And then basically, long story short, Knuckles goes to explain what's going on, explains how he got involved in the tournament. Amy laminates to Knuckles that, yeah, speaking of said tournament, you knocked me out of the ring. And Cream has to say, hey, and Cream has to tell her, hey, Amy, don't be a sore loser. It was all part of the tournament. And of course you have Bunny, she's asking what about the island and everything. Basically, you have Bunny asking about the island because she reminds Knuckles that from what they understand, without the Master Emerald, the island would fall, right? And Knuckles has to tell her that, yeah, that's true, but because of the situation with the planet right now, the floating island, Angel Island, if you will, is still afloat. The island is still in the air because of the situation with the planet. And of course, Cream is like, yeah, but if we fix the planet, wouldn't that mean your island falls? Does exactly what it should have done? And of course, you have Rhoda basically going on and explaining, well, it's not like we can basically hold off helping everybody else in this situation. And And of course, you have Amy asking Knuckles how he's doing so far, tracking the emeralds. Make sure he didn't skip anything here. And Knuckles is saying, basically Amy's asking Knuckles how he's doing tracking the shards, I should say. And Knuckles is saying, well, I'm doing what I do best. I'm doing I'm doing the best I can with the initial ability to find the power. And of course, Amy brings up the possibility of using the mystic melody that she learned in the Waves of Change story arc, because she goes on to ask Knuckles, how far is your range? Basically, she says, okay, how far can you track? How far can you be? It's like, how far can you be before you sense their power? And Knuckles is like, well, I don't know, about a few miles, maybe a couple miles. And like I said, that's when Amy brings up the idea that maybe by using the Mystic Melody, she can extend that range of finding the emeralds, and thus they can make searching, not emeralds, but for the shards, for the Master Emerald shards, thus making the search go a lot quicker and easier, so that not only can they piece together the emerald, but probably do it before they get the world fixed, so that when the world is fixed, the island won't fall into the ocean. And of course, surprisingly, this works because she could see an outpost. And of course, Knuckles, hearing this, says basically he should get to the surface and that he should be able to track it from there. And they both agree that this is kind of perfect. This is like a good, and they both kind of agree, hey, this is a good combination here. I could, Amy's like, I could track it from a distance. I could track and find them at a distance, and Knuckles is like, yeah, and I can find them at short range if I have to. And of course, Knuckles is like, not Knuckles, but then Rhoda kind of points out that, yeah, guys, that's great and all, but let's not forget, we can't split up the team right now. And Amy, with this Mystic Melody deal, is the best chance we have at finding the Gaia Temples. Let's see. Temples, and he goes on to remind them that while they were out on a mission with Sonic and Antoine, I guess, that Sky Patrol got overrun, and basically overall they can't divide their attention both ways. But I think Bunny goes on to remind them that Angel Island is part of the world as well. And Amy goes on to say, not Amy, but Cream also adds in, and Knuckles brought them a Chaos Emerald, so it's only fair that they help him out. And Rhoda's like, yeah, okay, I get it, but we have to prioritize the entire world. Basically says he gets it, he understands it. So now we cue back to Sonic and Antoine, and they finally meet up with Gregorus, who at first doesn't recognize Sonic, but then when Sonic explains who he is, he's like, oh yes, you're the hero. He allows Sonic and Antoine in, and Sonic, Antoine, and Chip in, I should say, and explains basically that, well, one may enter these Gaia chambers, or may enter the Gaia temples. The inner chambers are locked to intruders. And of course you got a little side panel where, a little side thing where you got something on the side of each of the panels where Antoine's like, oh, that's good. And then he goes on to explain that the only way the chambers could be opened is with the sun and the moon keys, and they're kept secret by a family whose duty is to keep it secret. And Antoine's like, that is bad. Because now they search for the keys and the temples. But then Gregoros says, though through the magic of the Gaia Gate, however, you can access the central chambers of the 7 Gaia temples from the spot they're at. And Antoine's about to say, oh, that's good, and Antoine's about to say something again, and Sonic's like, oh, come on, knock it off, Ant, we get it. And Chip's ecstatic by this, because this will make his mission easier to regain not only his memories, but to basically fix the world and all that. And then Antoine basically says, something that, hey, we won't have to worry about Eggman's army after we break into the temple. And of course you have Sonic a little mocking him a little bit, like, oh, Zutalo is obviously stating the obvious kind of deal. And of course, this doesn't help. This doesn't make Antoine happy, or it kind of annoys him a little bit. But, that's a classic nod to the whole Sonic Antoine thing from the cartoon. Now, Gregoros mentions that they have to gather the keys quickly, and that since Eggman sent Metal Sonic there after him, that he must be looking for the temples, and it won't take long for Eggman to learn about the keys as well. Now Sonic is glad that Gregorus wasn't hurt, but he basically says, "Hey, I didn't tell Metal Sonic anything, and that until this time he was the only one that knew about the Gaia. What was it? About the Gaia Gate and the identity of the key holders." But he was kept a secrecy until Eggman sent Metal Sonic after him, and thus he had to reveal his secret. Now, basically, after they leave, Chip's excited because maybe this will help him fight his memory, regain his memories. And as they leave, Sonic ends up turning back into a werehog, and also kind of adds to that yeah, and maybe this will stop me from turning into this every night. And just as, that happens, of course, they hear people screaming for help because they're being attacked by the Dark Gaia monsters. And of course, they fight off the monsters. Sonic is kind of surprised that Antoine's not as afraid of them as he thought he would be. And Antoine's like, "Hey, how do you say deal with it?" Well, basically he states, "Yes, I am quite terrified of these things, but I can, how you say, deal with it." Of course, just as he says that, on cue, you get a mega boss level like Gaia monster. And Sonic's like, "Yeah, tell me how you can deal with that." And Antoine's like, "Oh, but I really wish you never have me not to." So basically they have Chip call Rotor and the others for help. In comes, while they're fighting the thing, and Sonic tries to do a divide and conquer deal, and he says, "Antoine, you take care of the smaller Gaias, I'll take care of the big guy." And that's what they're doing, and just as they're doing that, in comes the cavalry of Knuckles, Bunny, and Amy. Knuckles basically sees the monster, and he's like, "Oh great, another one." And Sonic's like, "Wait a minute, you dealt with this before?" And Knuckles goes on to explain, "Yeah, I dealt with it. Me and the Chaotix dealt with it, and the only way we were to defeat it was to have Bean throw a bomb at it and punch it a lot." And Sonic's like, "Okay, punch it a lot it is." And Knuckles is like, "Oh, I like this version of you." So they start punching at this Dark Gaia thing, and then all of a sudden, as they're punching away at it, it reveals to have one of the Master Shards in it. And of course, Sonic points this out. Knuckles says, "Oh, I thought it felt really close." So they try everything they can to pull it free. And as they're blasting away at it, Sonic, of course, extends his arms because that's his ability. And this, surprisingly, allows Antron to run up his arms, literally jump and run up his arms, and use his sword to jam it right into the monster and get the Master Shard loose, which he does. Bunny's impressed, basically saying that's her man. And Antoine's like, "Yeah, but let us be saving the world, so I am not having to do this again." And of course, they close out the battle with Knuckles and Amy putting in the final blow together to dispose of the Dark Gaia monster. And Amy compliments, saying that's nice work, that almost makes up for the tournament. And Knuckles has to remind her, "Hey, I thought the round started." He says, "The round started. I thought you were ready. Would you